You know, I've never attacked another human being in my entire life. Now I've dropped 2 in the same day.
So how'd it feel?
Great.
You do realize we'll probably end up living in a Motel 6.
Yep. Sounds pretty good to me.
Welcome to part 2 of our Dunston Checks In episode. But before we go into real talk, it's time for PP, our patron pitch. This is where we let our patrons know what they can expect on their exclusive patron feed, and we also let non-patrons know what they're missing out on. So, Alex, this is kind of a thing that we didn't plan, but it just happened. And February is sort of a monkey month for the contrarians. Because we're going to start by repeating something we said last month. And that is that our bonus episode for the month of February, picked by patron Jordan Mans, is on the movie King Kong, the original from 1933. So Dunston on the main feed, Kong on the patron feed, available to anybody that's a patron from the ground up. The dollar tier, the Travoltis and onward. Everybody gets access to the King Kong episode, which will drop at some point in February. Also available to everybody is our cutting room floor segments. I don't know how much Dunston cutting room floor stuff there's going to be, but usually whenever there's not enough to do like a full segment, I'll, combine it with different episodes. Because this movie is like in and out, and our Contrarians Corner recording so far has been the same. So I don't know. You didn't even go into a wrestling digression. At least not in Contrarians Corner. Maybe Real Talk will bring something else.
I could have found something if I wanted to, but I didn't want to disrespect Ken Quappis's vision.
Well, if you're a member of our Patreon, you'll get to listen to all the stuff that doesn't make it to the main feed. So bonus episodes, cutting room floor stuff, access to the chat. All that stuff is just right there from the dollar tier onwards. If you want more stuff, then you move up to the $3 tier, the Winonis. And then you have access to our pre-recording notes. You have access to our quick video reviews. This month, picked by Brandon Curtis, patron Brandon Curtis, who usually gives us Indian movies to watch. But this month, he's doing something else. He gave me a French movie called Lost Bullet, and Alex, a movie that it was at least partly produced by the WWE, right? I think that's what you figure out. Triple Threat?
Yes. Michael J. White, I believe, is in it.
Yeah. Well, he's not a wrestler, but...
No. It was part of the WWE filmography. WWE Studios, excuse me. It looks like Michael Bisping, former UFC middleweight champion, is in it as well. And it's 96 minutes, so yeah, man, we're cooking.
There you go. That's a nice change of pace from Brandon Curtis. So
extremely.
We'll do these QVRs individually. So Alex does his own, I do my own, and then we exchange notes, I guess, just for the fun of it. And then you have, of course, Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we tell you about other things that we're watching, that we're reading, that we're listening to, that we're thinking about. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
Julio, we are going to talk about not a monkey, but a bear, more specifically, The Bear, the FX original series starring Carrie Von Erich and Maddie Matheson. Abby Elliott's in it too, which I didn't know. And God knows I love me some Abby Elliott, and she has like a part in it. But that show, I have a really hard time enjoying things today. And I blitzkrieged through that show because I just could not get enough of it. And now I'm understanding the way content's created because I'm like, fuck, I don't even know if they've shot the 3rd season yet. I want it. I need it. I need more.
Have you gained new appreciation for what he's doing in the Iron Claw after seeing him play a different character?
Oh yeah. I mean, I thought he was great to begin with, but Carmy, yeah, he's by the time we record the After Hours, I'm not kidding. I will have watched both first and second season twice. Like, I can't get enough of it. It's amazing. Have you watched any of it?
Nope. I've only heard of it.
Oliver Platt's in it, and his name's Jimmy. So I'm choosing to believe that he's his character from Ready to Rumble that got his life together and made good financial decisions. But anyway, I am obsessed, as the kids say, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. So, Julio, what are you going to bring to After Hours?
Well, I'm going to take us back to 2016, Alex, to the movie The Salesman, which is Asghar Farhadi's follow-up to A Separation, a movie that has a place in our history as friends, as film lovers. Did we watch it together, or did we just find out that, we both really like that movie?
Oh, did we watch that together? I don't think we did.
No, we just talked about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, so A Separation, if I'm not mistaken, won an Oscar. Like, it won the Oscar for Best International. And then a few years later, he did this follow-up, The Salesman, and it also won an Oscar. Like, Farhadi, firing on all cylinders. I remember hearing about The Salesman when it came out, and I was like, from the director of A Separation, and I never got around to it. I think maybe it just didn't open in any theaters that were nearby, but it's streaming on Prime, and I watched it. I have thoughts. I'm gonna tell you about it because it's a good one. It's a hard watch, harder than I was expecting, but well worth it. And then on the lighter side of things, I finally watched the Beetlejuice musical. They came to Austin, and something that had been kind of on my wish list pretty much since we did the Beetlejuice episode. Speaking of Glenn Shaddix, a few years ago. And that's when I found out really that it was something that existed. And it finally came to Austin this season, and I went and I saw it, and I have thoughts, not all of them positive, but overall, I mean, I did enjoy it, and I think it'll make for an interesting conversation, especially considering that Beetlejuice is part of Contrarian's canon. I think that we can talk about it. Glenn Shaddix is not in it, sadly. So the Beetlejuice musical, The Salesman, and The Bear. That is your After Hours for this episode. And then if you want to be part of those patrons that tell us what to do, then that is what the $5 and $10 tiers are for. The Embries and the Gads. Just go to patreon.com/Contrarian Prime, look at what we're offering on every level, and see how you would like to join the Contrarian supplements.
$1, $3, $5, and $10 are respective tiers, as Julio just broke down there. Yeah, go check it out. Drop $1. Take a look around. See what you like. See if you want to have access to more, as Kylo Ren would say. And be sure to keep in mind our goals out there for 30, 40, and 50 patrons. We have our respective goals of projects that we will tackle for patron exclusivity once we reach those numbers. And to all of our current patrons, we love y'all, even if you throw movies like Dunston Checks In at us. Which I'm kidding, of course, because this was nowhere near as laborious or torturous as some of the other things our wonderful patrons have thrown our way. But we do love all of our patrons. Bless you all. Take care. And as I like to say, we are accepting applications for new ones, and they will be promptly reviewed and approved by our human resources department. Speaking of human resources, Julio, what a violation it would be to have a orangutan running around your premises.
But what if it's just lovable? Doesn't that factor in?
No.
Hello, Dunston. Nice to officially meet you.
Dogs are the greatest things in the world, but you can't have them running around your restaurant.
Okay, well, you keep him out of the kitchen, but as far as just having him use the amenities of the hotel,
I guess you're right. If Dunston had just stayed in the presidential suite, he would have been all right.
Yeah, I mean, eventually somebody was going to have to go in and, I guess, clean monkey shit out of the walls. But for the most part, I mean, he was well behaved.
Oh yeah.
So that's fine. There's worse. I mean, if you have to choose between keeping Rupert Everett or keeping Dunston in your hotel, you kick Everett out.
I would agree.
Yeah, there you go. Common ground.
He's an asshole.
Yes, he is. Alex, real talk for Dunston Checks In. That is, again, not something that I expected to be doing in February. This is more of a end of the year, like we're getting, it's the last sketch in Saturday Night Live, like the one where they get weird.
Oh yeah, the 11:50.
That's what Dunston Checks In is. Yeah. that's what the episode would be. But no, we're getting it out early. I have fresh quotes, believe it or not.
Let's hear them.
Okay. We start with Danielle Zolzman from Zolzy at the Movies, who says Dunston Checks In is a mindless comedy, but it's still a lot of fun after all these years. Mindless comedy?
Yeah, I think it's fair to call it mindless. As weird as it sounds, though, it's not like soulless. It's just from that time period where things like this were made, and made with, I feel like, somewhat of good intention. There's no malice or contempt for its audience. But yeah, it's pretty silly.
Well, Leonard Clady from Variety might disagree, Alex. It's a first-class, stylish farce with a brisk pace and cool wit. He swung for the other side.
I agree with the brisk pace, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I think where we can start here in a minute, and like the thing I can be extremely complimentary about, this flew by. It didn't linger in any aspect for me to get really like bothered or like frustrated or just kind of like, let's go. It's, you know, I was complacent the whole time.
Well, here's a different take. Tyler Maxon from Screen Slate says, built into 1996 comedy Dunston Checks In, a film predominantly comprised of orangutan set pieces, is something like a comment on the pains of domestication. This dude, we've gone from it being mindless to it being witty to it being about something. Is Dunston Checks In about something, Alex?
No.
Not even about, I don't know, the need for a father to pay more attention to his kids?
I guess, but that's every 90s movie, dude. Yeah. Like that's a single parent that's having issues. You know, it's just it's what comes along with the territory of the era.
This guy Tyler Maxon is just projecting his insecurities into Dunston.
It bothers me that my immediate thought is like, if this came out today, would I be as forgiving of it? Because watching this and knowing it came from 1996 takes me back to another time and an era that I enjoyed of filmmaking more, to where it didn't really feel like, hey, you know, there's definitely this. I mean, it's 17% for crying out loud, but it's not like it's a big review pool. But like, you know, there were plenty of really, really dumb kids movies made at the time, and I'm sure people hated this, but it's really, really dumb. But I didn't find myself bothered at any point of it. I'm not going to say this is like a good movie, but I certainly wouldn't go as far as those quotes you just read. You know, complacent is the right word. I was just kind of content with it. It didn't get to a point where I was like, man, fuck this, or, you know, yelling at my screen. The first time I paused it, it was 35 minutes into it, and I was like, hell yeah, because it felt like, you know, I'd been watching it for 10 minutes, and so the pace really helps, and I guess that's my starting point. Was that your last quote that you had?
Well, we kind of have to read this from a patron friend of the show, Ben from Filmbusters, who when he saw, I posted just a gif of Dunstan slapping that lady's ass, you know, just announcing that we're recording that episode tonight. And Ben replied, "Holy shit, this is one of the greatest films ever made. Watching it stoned is a trip."
Okay, I can believe that part of it. The second half, I did see on Letterboxd he gave this 4 stars.
My God.
So yeah, I'm definitely not going that far. I could see the stoned part, and yeah, I mean, I did get a kick out of the orangutan, like really doing shit. It was funny, but you know, it's Sammy was its name, the actual name of the orangutan. But you know, there's a lot of shit like this in the 90s, man. This one's just a bit more kind of like, oh, it's the kid from the Santa Claus, and George from Seinfeld during like the height of Seinfeld is here.
Okay, but there's two separate elements there. Because I think that I'm with you as far as the orangutan being the star. For me, the big thing, the thing that, I'm not going to say that's what kept me watching, but the thing that held my attention, that kept constantly surprising me in a way, was the orangutan. Because, you know, knowing that it's an actual monkey there and that they train him to do all these things and he's doing them. And he is, you know, you can see it in his eyes. I mean, there's Okay, I'm not going to tell you that Sammy is putting on a performance, but in a way he is, right? I mean, he's not acting, but given the right circumstances, you put the movie together the right way, and it really feels like he's emoting in some parts. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm not one of those people that is going to tell you, yes, they put him through acting school, and so he understands the motivation behind like reacting this way when Rupert Everett's coming to him or when the kid is singing to him, right? But
Yeah.
there is an aspect of filmmaking that has to do with dealing with animals in movies and how you frame the shot, how you get the in this case, the orangutan to do certain things so that you can frame them and you can, edit them together so that when you're watching the movie, you're like, holy shit, he knows what's happening, right? He knows that Rupert Everett is the bad guy and that he's assisting him with these robberies against his will, and he knows that the kid is a good person and he cares for the kid and he understands the kid cares for him. All that stuff. I mean, yes, if you take a step back, you're like, I know that that's not really what's happening, but it is movie magic and it's kind of impressive watching it. I was like, man, they really made it work. I mean, it never felt fake. Dunston's performance was always on point. You even made the joke in Contreras Corner. You kind of had a throwaway line about how he's a better performer than some of the actors in the movie.
I mean, I enjoyed him more than most of the people in the movie. The older brother's not that good, but again, I don't know how young that kid would have been, so I don't feel like picking on him. Not an asshole like you, Julio.
I was criticizing the character, and that's actually the thing. Like that poor kid was given a very specific trope character for those movies.
Yeah.
And that trope is annoying.
Well, if you got to be grounded, a 5-star hotel is the place to be.
You could say Dunston has an easier job because it's so much easier. It's so easy to like him, right? It's like, oh, he's just a put upon wild animal that has a good heart. So that's good. I mean, I obviously, when you watch the movie, you're not really thinking, you're not supposed to be thinking of the behind the scenes stuff, right? The animal trainers and all that, but they are a big part of this.
Yeah, and a huge part of it, I was obviously shooting for laughs, but safe bet, right? They remake this tomorrow. The orangutan is completely CG.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that would lose, we usually, I will go to bat for CG.
I'm aware.
And I would still tell you, okay, you can make it work in the sense that, those new Planet of the Apes movies are amazing. And that's just mostly motion capture and.
Yeah, what I was gunning at, though, is you and I watching this for the first time in 2024. If we were our age watching this in 96, we'd just be used to animals in movies and shit. But since it's like not, I wouldn't say a novel concept, but it's been a long ass time since they made a movie that was like animal led like this, that wasn't in some way, CG or whatnot. And so that is definitely makes sense. That's kind of what we're harping on, aside from the fact that it's like the selling point of the movie. But it's like, it's just like you said, he's not acting the way Daniel Day-Lewis acts,
right.
But like the way this movie's edited and the things that this monkey that it could do, like I said, I love dogs. Dogs are like the greatest creatures on earth, but orangutans have a different level of intelligence that like I feel saying like, you could say a dog does a trick, but saying that like an orangutan does a trick undermines like their intelligence, if that makes sense. And so like Sammy, this orangutan here, it's like, all right, you guys want me to do this? All right, cool. This is how I make my money. This is how I get fed. And so, oh, you want me to stick my tongue out? Okay, here you go. In his mind, he's probably like fucking apes, like just looking at like the humans standing around clapping and stuff. I found here, it's just attributed to the Chicago Tribune, which one would think that would be Ebert or Siskel, but it just has the quote from the Chicago Tribune. The cast is talented, and the hide-and-seek action is silly, not killing, and the bond between the sweet little boy and his adorable ape is touching. It doesn't say if, it didn't give a rating or whatnot, but it's definitely favorable. So I am glad, because when it was over, I was like, that was fine. I didn't want to come on here and you'd be like talking about, I didn't want it to be the beach bum which was pretty much similar for me. I was like, yeah, it was all right. There was some good. Snoop Dogg's really good, and you were like,
"There's a real Matthew McConaughey there, not CGI."
and you were just fucking miserable that entire time. So I'm glad it sounds like one, the runtime is innocent and really no aspect of this movie lingers too long to become like, oh my god, and it's fun enough. There's some fun aspects to it, and it's just what it was then. But I think we're both in the same boat. I'm not gonna call this a good movie.
No, but it could have been a better movie. And here comes the second thing. I told you there are two things, right? One is Dunston, the other one is Jason Alexander, and I am not surprised. I mean, I understand. I kind of like said it in Insurance Corner, right? And again, it's a throwback to our friend Extravaganza. The idea that when you've been playing a character that's so well known on a TV show that's so successful,
yeah,
you go out to make a movie and you have that choice of, do I play a part that is basically my character from the TV show, or do I do something completely different? And so Jason Alexander in this one seems to have gone with, I am going to be not going to be George Costanza. I want people to see me and think something else. And I think that he succeeds in that sense because he doesn't have, say for a couple of moments, like we said, he's not George Costanza, but he's also just so fucking boring in this movie. And it's even more noticeable because I know how funny he is, right? Like in Seinfeld, like George Costanza, I mean, that entire cast, the core four are great. But
I never can remember if we have like people in their 20s listening to this. Like I always think of like our audience being like our age, and like if you are younger, like we're not overstating it here, and it's not out of line or overly hyperbolic to talk about them this way. Like it's literally one of the biggest television shows in the history of television. With lines that have penetrated beyond just pop culture. Like,
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. The one I forget all the time that people don't know the origin of it is yada, yada, yada. Like there are people that is just disposable dialogue that is used every day. And I'm sure corners of the world that I can't even fathom. And that's where it comes from. And, it's so and this was, like I said, at arguably the peak of the show. So it is fascinating. And the core four are great, like you said. And I was looking at it. I was trying to remember Airheads. Airheads is 94. And so that was during Seinfeld, but not when it was kind of as white hot as it was here. And that was like the movie Kramer did. He basically plays Kramer with a mustache. But, Julia Louis-Dreyfus obviously has had a very successful post-Seinfeld career, both in television and film. I think to your point, part of that success is, at least from a movie perspective, I'm just immediately go to enough said, like that's not an Elaine character.
Yep.
And here, Robert isn't like, he's not George. They give him the one moment where they're like, all right, people know you from Seinfeld, so be George for 30 seconds. But I think if I'm picking up what you're putting down, there's just the idea is there, but the Robert character just is given nothing to do.
Yes. I think that he is pitched as the straight man, which already puts him at a disadvantage, right? Because he has a zany kids, and he has an orangutan, and he has Rupert Everett playing it really broad, and then Pee Wee Herman. So he's starting behind. But then there is a conscious choice from Jason Alexander to really tone it down. Like everything he says, I think that his take on portraying this guy as very, very professional is that he shows him also as being very collected. And that is not very fun. That's not fun or funny. So I just felt like the jokes always died when they got to him. Everybody is being just so broad, and every now and then it works. Like when he pretends that he's firing that one of the workers because Faye Dunaway wants him to fire somebody.
Yeah.
The way he underplays it in that sequence is funny because, he's asking her to cry, and the way he explains, I'm not really firing you. I'm sending you on vacation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's funny. But he plays it on that level the entire time. I'm like, this is a movie about a monkey, and I guess you could make the argument. It's like, yeah, that's why it should be funny, right? Everybody else is so over the top, and he's just underreacting and being just very collected, but it just doesn't translate. And
yeah, I guess there could someone, if they wanted to, could also argue like the meta thing of like he's anti-George,
right? But I mean, do I want to see anti-George? I don't
Exactly.
know. You know? And maybe, it's not just me. I think that in general, the world was like, doesn't really care. And I asked the question on Contreras Corner, and I mean, it was something that I just kept thinking about. I was like, I usually see, I mean, not usually, I've always seen Jason Alexander in supporting roles, and he does well.
Mm-hmm.
You called him out in Contreras Corner, like Pretty Woman, Shallow Hal, even. I said I like Rocky and Bullwinkle. That's a movie that has a pretty bad reputation, but I think he's great in it. I think De Niro's great in it. I think Rene Russo is a female villain in that one. But anyway,
I feel like we talked about that during Get Shorty.
Yes, I think so. So I've seen him in supporting roles, and he's always been like, I always think he's doing fine. And then it's unfortunate that the one movie where I see him as the lead, he just doesn't do it, right? But look, I'm also thinking, would I want to watch a show that's just about George or a show where George is the lead? Probably not, And I think that maybe I don't know enough about Jason Alexander, I guess, to tell you, well, it's just that he has supporting character energy. But that's what I was thinking when I was watching this movie. Like I went
He's
to
Denzel's best friend.
Yes,
He's not Denzel.
Yes. I was like, when did we talk about this? Yeah, Ricochet. It is, when you watch, I think that sometimes your brain jumps to the easiest, simplest explanation. And the easiest, simplest explanation based on the knowledge I have is just that, he can only do supporting roles. He just can't lead a movie. I don't know that there's a whole lot of like samples where you can go and be like, oh, well, here's like 4 other movies where he's the lead and he actually does well there. It's just that what fails is something else. But in this movie, I just think that he can't carry it. And that's a shame. I kept thinking, I just want somebody more fun to play the dad. Like there are bits that he does here that are just so weird. Like when he's having that meeting with Faye Dunaway and he grabs the paper and he starts like hitting his head with the paper, and then he hands the paper to Faye Dunaway's husband and he goes like, paper?
Word. What's the word that I'm looking for? I hate when that happens, when words just fly out of your head. It just makes me insane. Paper?
Huh?
I'm like, I know that's supposed to be funny, but it's not funny at all. And I know he is funny. I've seen him be funny in Seinfeld. And so it's just weird. And I honestly think that that's the big problem with the movie. The Jason Alexander character, the main character in a way. Surprisingly, not the kids. Like I was like, fine, these kids are pitched at the exact level that they need to be pitched in this 90s family movie. I was ready to hate them. Like as soon as the movie starts and it's like, oh, the kids are getting into trouble, this is just gonna get on my nerves. But it didn't. Like they're not great performances, but like that kid, Eric Lloyd, like he's a good screamer. That was my main note. There's like every time that they throw him down the hallway or he falls or whatever, like he screams and I buy it. It doesn't feel like shtick. It just feels like a kid that's screaming.
I can't remember. When was the last time you saw the Santa Claus? Have we talked about that?
He's 2 Christmases ago, I think. For me,
he's a lot in that movie. Like he gets a lot of dialogue, and it's like, all right, let's ring it in. Let's pump the brakes here. And here, it's just he yells and hey, he's over here. No, he's over here. It's not enough to be offensive. I probably would have dialed it back a little bit just to get a few more Glenn Shaddix falls or him tripping. His coffee's too hot. Whatever it took to get more reaction shots from Glenn Shaddix.
I didn't even know this guy's name a few years ago, and now I know exactly who Glenn Shaddix is.
Otho.
Yeah.
My notes just have Otho takes a bump. Otho gets tea poured on him. Otho shot.
Faye Dunaway. I wasn't kidding about her IMDb page and the quotes that they have over there about her career. It's assuming that they're all correct. She seems to have this sort of conflicted relationship with some of her work. And I think that probably applies to most actors and actresses that have been around for a while, right? Like you go through a patch where you just don't always do things that you like. I think that some of them are more candid than others. And I think that she seems to be a person that's pretty candid about her her work. So with that in mind, I would be really curious to hear what she has to say about Dunston Checks In. Like, is it something that she looks at, oh, well, I did it for the paycheck, or is she happy that she did something that her grandkids can watch? I don't know. I know that I've liked her in other movies.
It's a pretty wild one just to do for the paycheck, especially when you're fucking Faye Dunaway.
Yeah, I guess not for the paycheck, as in like she was about to lose her house or something, but I don't know. Sometimes you just want to keep working.
That's the thing with Jason Alexander too. I don't know if he has kids. If this could have been one of those movies made it for their kids.
They're too young for Seinfeld and too old for Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Need something to clean the palate, just to see Dad and be like, oh yeah, he does do stuff I like. Oh, that's funny.
No, but see, with Jason Alexander, I think that my assumption is that that's him opening up the avenue for, leading features. Because, yeah, definitely he did need it, right? And I guess assuming that he gets decent residuals from Seinfeld, he's never going to need anything else. But, you got to think about Seinfeld is not going to last forever, so what do I do next? I don't even think that he's been on a TV show since then. He's made movies, but I don't remember hearing of the next Jason Alexander project.
Yeah, he was originally supposed to be Jason Bourne, but, it didn't work out.
But he underplayed it too much.
Jason Alexander was always the first choice for the role of Robert Grant, but because Seinfeld was in the middle of filming its 6th season, and because part of the movie would be filmed in London, he almost had to turn down the role. In the meanwhile, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Ted Danson, Chevy Chase, Rowan Atkinson, and John Stamos were all considered as alternatives in case Alexander was unavailable. Fortunately, director Ken Kwapis arranged for all of the exterior scenes that were shot in Los Angeles to be filmed at the same time as Seinfeld, which was also being filmed in Los Angeles, while the London interior sequences would be filmed during Alexander's summer hiatus from the show.
Tell me you didn't do a double take when you saw John Stamos' name there.
That, we might be talking about a really bad movie if that was the case.
Bill Murray, I think that's the energy that I wanted for this Robert Grant character.
That's fair.
Just a little like more, because he's a good guy, but that's the danger. You can make it a good guy just too boring, and Bill Murray can play a good guy that has a bit of an asshole side to him, and that would have been more up my speed, I guess.
God bless Rowan Atkinson, but he probably would have taken away from. He would have outdone the monkey.
Yes. Very, very true. So where do you fall, Alex, of these types of movies? I'm not talking about family movies, but specifically the animal type of movies, because I've never been a fan of them. Definitely not something, even when I was a kid, I did not like going to watch movies like, even something that's a little more adult, like Babe. I just not my thing, There's like stuff like
Best Picture nominee, Babe.
I know, yeah. Babe and Babe in the City are good movies, but I just, I don't go out on my way to watch them. Like, I'm trying to think of other titles, like Racing Stripes, right? That's something, was it 90s? No, that's early 2000s.
Homeward Bound?
Homeward Bound I've heard of, but that's my problem. And those are even worse because those are like specifically like focus on animals, and then, you follow them through a journey. And I'm always just freaking out that something bad's going to happen to them. Mm-hmm. And it just feels a lot worse when it's happening to an animal versus like, oh, it's just happening to an actor, But I also, I just don't know, like Hotel for Dogs. Okay, that's something. Obviously, I was not the target audience when Hotel for Dogs came out, but that's something that I think of as like, I know this is just for young kids, right? The idea that it's just gonna be a bunch of animals, and then there's gonna be pratfalls and escapades and that kind of stuff. I don't find that appealing at all. Like if I had a kid, like I wouldn't take them to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that some people actually enjoyed the idea of like going and I was like, oh, we're gonna watch a movie about animals doing silly things. Like, where do you fall on that range?
I'm not as like opposed to it as you are. At the same time, like Babe, and Homeward Bound was a big one when I was a kid that wore that VHS out. So you don't consider Fantastic Mr. Fox a movie about animals?
No, that's not a fox. That's George Clooney.
What? Okay, are we talking about real animals here? Like, what about Ice Age?
No, okay, no, that's animation. Animation is a separate conversation.
Okay, so we're talking about a separate conversation. We're talking about shit like Free Willy and this.
Yes, yeah, okay. Free Willy or like I said, Racing Stripes. That is real animals, right? I'm not making that up.
Racing Stripes is yes. Frankie
zebra?
Muniz, yeah. Hayden Panettiere. She had in her contract that she couldn't die on screen in that. Beethoven.
And, there you go. Beethoven. There's like 10 of those. I've seen the first one.
Milo and Otis, which fuck that movie. That was like a big. That's a lot of animal cruelty went down in the making of that movie. So fuck that movie. Yeah, that's kind of one of the first things my mind went to with this is making sure that everyone was okay, and I didn't find any reports that there was any issues. In fact, that we'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, I get really emotional about dogs to begin with, and just animals in general. I love them. I always go to the thing of like, I know it's hypocritical. I'm not a vegetarian, but it's I own Babe. It's in my vast collection of physical media that I have, Julio. But I can't remember the last time I watched it. It's a very touching movie. I remember, and I also kind of like it more because it is a good movie. But it was one of those that people got all up in their asses about when it got nominated for Best Picture. They were all butthurt about it and shit. So I was like, good, fuck you. But yeah, I guess the more I think about it, I'm probably, since we're taking animation out of it and just referring to like live action ones, then yeah, that I'm probably more in line with you on that. Of I'm not anti, but it's not my immediate go-to, and not something that if a movie tomorrow came out about a horse, a war horse, I wouldn't be lining up first thing to see it.
So you did not go to see either Seabiscuit or Secretariat?
I have still never seen Seabiscuit. Didn't that get nominated for Best Picture?
Yep, it did. Yeah. It went up against Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. So you know how that went.
Poor son of a bitch. Yeah, that. I think I'd probably be more in line with Babe getting a Best Picture nomination than that.
Monkey spit. How delicious.
All right, so we're both coming at it, the same way. Like if the movie doesn't work, it would be, I think, if one of us or both of us, if we were more into this type of movie, the animal focused movie, and this didn't work better, then that might be an issue. But no, I think that it was never going to, hit any highs with us. Like there's only so much amusement I can derive from watching a monkey, do things in a hotel.
Yeah, but still, even though we're not saying it's good, we're both saying this isn't our kind of movie. I am honestly, when I saw like the poster for this and like read the plot synopsis, like I thought like, Baby's Day Out I think that was Ebert or Siskel's like most hated movie ever. I was thinking it was going to be like one of those 90s movies where we were just like struggling. And the most surprising part on the other end of this is both of you and I are just like, yeah, it's fine. It doesn't really seem to be any, we're certainly not on the Ben side of history with it being an all-time classic. Having just watched Grandma's Boy, that's one of the big, that's literally one of the parts of the plot of that movie is getting high and watching a monkey do stuff. So I could see that being entertaining. But
yeah, I think a more positive way of phrasing it is that if watching animal movies, this type of movie is your bag, then you're probably going to enjoy this even more, right? Like as a baseline, we're like, it's okay. It's not the disaster that the poster or the Rotten Tomatoes score may lead you to believe it is. But on top of that, it might be great if you like this sort of stuff, Hotel for Dogs was your jam. This is going to be, I wonder how Ben feels about Hotel for Dogs now. And if it's just about how old were you when you watched Dunston Checks In? And is it part of your childhood? And that's why it hits you more powerfully.
The most adorable thing I found about this movie in my research, and I'm sending it to you right now, Julio, is this poster, this banner for it. It's the King Kong poster, but it's Charlie and Dunston on top of it. And I think that's very cute. I'm at that point in my life now where, things that are overly parodied really annoy me. But this would have been like, only 60 years after the movie. So, it's okay.
They're about to turn a 5-star hotel into a 3-ring circus.
God bless. And then it's got the cast on the side there. I don't know if this was probably like a newspaper ad or like a magazine 2-page.
So we go from the top, right? Alexander, Danaway, Lloyd, Everett, whatever the kid playing Brian is, Shaddix.
And
Reuben.
then Paul Rubens has like a smolder in his headshot there.
And then Sammy at the very end.
And to, looking towards the end of this episode here, to pay tribute to the titular character of this movie, Sammy, I found a website, Center for Great Apes, centerforgreatapes.org. The Center for Great Apes' mission is to provide a permanent sanctuary for orangutans and chimpanzees who have been rescued or retired from the entertainment industry, from research, or from exotic pet trade. So obviously something very noble. And for some of their more well-known orangutans, some of their more well-known residents, they have like profile pages. And I found one on Sammy, born on December 23rd of 1989. And lived until December 3rd of 2010. Like many others of the orangutans born in Miami at the breeders' facility, Sammy spent his first 18 months as an infant at the Parrot Jungle attraction in Miami. Both still considered infants, Sammy and his little companion Jerry were sent to California to work in entertainment with a trainer who had chimpanzees. Sammy and Jerry worked in many commercials and advertisements, as well as television shows and movies. Sammy and Jerry played the part of the neighbors to Fred and Wilma in the Flintstones movie with John Goodman and Rosie O'Donnell. Sammy was most well known for his part as Dunston in the movie Dunston Checks In with Faye Dunaway, Jason Alexander, and Pee Wee Herman. Come on, his name's Paul Rubens. Cut him a little slack here.
He's not even playing a Pee Wee-like character in the movie.
He's not. He's a pro wrestler, though. I'm sorry, brother, but you got the life of a pro wrestler. When you passed away, everyone called you Pee Wee Herman. It's just no one's gonna know who the fuck Terry Bollea is ever. He's always gonna be Hulk Hogan, dude. Shortly after the Dunston movie, Sammy was unable to be used in entertainment because he was growing stronger, so he was retired to the trainer's compound. It was there that Jerry and Sam produced an infant male named Jam, a combo of the parents' names. Sammy and Jerry were permanently moved to Florida for sanctuary care and arrived at the Center for Great Apes in 2004. Their son Jam, age 3 at the time, arrived a few months later in 2005. Sammy was one of the most handsome adult male orangutans, and his son Jam has grown into an equally beautiful adult male. Sadly, Sammy passed away in his sleep in December of 2010 as a result of a sudden heart attack. And yeah, so he would have been just about to turn 21, and that's pretty young. The life expectancy for an orangutan is around 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I did one further. I looked at the oldest living one's 60 right now at the Oregon Zoo. So not too far off from human life expectancy. Not too far off, meaning several decades, but when you compare it to like a fucking ant or something, they're closer to human life expectancy. Relative.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, that is. It never occurred to me that you could retire. That you should retire an acting ape because they got too strong. But it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed that they just acted until they were too old to do it, and I guess that's what happens. Except that it has nothing to do with like frailty. The opposite. Instead,
that's imagine a fucking 600-pound gorilla, orangutan, what have you, not wanting to do what you're telling it to.
Just punching Rupert Everett's head off.
You think Last Tango in Paris was hard to film? But no, I thought, obviously a gorilla obviously weighs, upwards of what I cited there. But just to confirm here, it looks like average weight of an adult male orangutan is 285 pounds, which is still a big animal. if you're trying to get it to do something it doesn't want to, and the strength it has is probably disproportionate to that of most 285-pound men of the human species. So I just thought that aside from the sudden death, that was kind of a nice way to end it. Like he was cared for in the last years of his life.
That was that's what every actor wants.
That's in some ways Sammy had it better than a lot of actors. Mickey Rourke sure wished someone would have come and taken care of him after The Wrestler.
You just take him to Florida. It's like, Mickey, you did good.
He did. Oh, I'm sorry. It would have to have been Iron Man 2. It was after that because that was his big cash in off of his awards movie.
It's also nice to end with the realization that Sammy is a Contrarians 2-timer now.
Yeah, I know, right? Like this movie is officially part of Contrarians canon, and Sammy, who knows? Sammy could return.
Like Glenn Shaddix come back for a third outing.
God, I'm not wrong. He exists to be a punchline in this movie.
Yes,
and
every
part
scene
of the thing
that he's in, like he's just getting slapped, or he falls, or something spills on him.
Which, of course, it makes sense in the end because he's the critic, and it's like,
right.
Oh, so everything fucked up. But it's just an interesting thing because the character of Otho and his like performance in that is like a magnetic performance in how just kind of off center he is. And so to have that here, to just see him be like, fucking Buster Keaton or some shit, it's interesting.
Glenn Shaddix beaming with pride at being compared to Buster Keaton.
How could I forget? He's the mayor of Halloween Town too. So he's
oh wow, 4 times.
Yeah.
Man,
he could be approaching the 5-timers club before too long. He's in the 2001 Planet of the Apes. So if we ever get to that point, he can enter the 5-timers club. Or if we ever want to do multiplicity.
Is he the clumsy ape in Planet of the Apes?
Probably. He's in Demolition Man too, so never say never.
I can do all sorts of tricks. Do you know what my speciality is?
Let's close, Alex, with just something that it's not going to go long because I teased that, we're going to talk about Rupert Everett quite a bit this summer. But I mean, you kind of have to, talk about his performance here. Did it work or was it too much for you?
It fit tonally with the movie, I think would be the positive spin I would put on it. He was the one character in this that by the end of it, I was like, all right, good. We're done with that. Because, you can only do that shot. It's really big in 90s television, but movies too, of it's the POV of the little kid. And so it looks like fucking Rupert Everett's 12 feet tall, like looking up at him. And I think they do that maybe 7 times in this movie. And
yes. Yeah.
So,
I felt the teeth were a little too much. Like that character didn't need that. Right? Like, unless you reveal that he takes him off at night and it's just something that he puts on to be unrecognizable. But it just felt like an actor that was, I mean, maybe not, maybe it was Quapis' idea. I don't know. Whoever came up with that, it was like, that's too much, man. I know that there's a monkey on set, but still, tone it down. But I'll just ask you to keep this performance in mind so that when we see his other work, his most well-known work, I think you can contrast it. That was obviously, I'm watching him in this movie and I'm like, oh, wow. It's not like what he did in My Best Friend's Wedding. So I'm even more positive on this movie after this talk than I was when I finished it. What are you scoring it?
I'm going to give it a C because I'm the same. I didn't have a blow away good time. This isn't one of those movies that I'm going to reference as like, holy shit, one of the, I'm so glad a patron. It's not Riders of Justice. I'll just say that. But it was fun. It's a movie that I had nostalgia for, even though I didn't have nostalgia specifically for the movie, if that makes sense. And it was fun. In this discussion, we honestly got a lot more out of it than I was expecting. So a C with a thumbs up and like an asterisk that you scroll down to the bottom of the review and it says it used to be better.
Meanwhile, Matt Mikkelsen just breathes a sigh of relief.
I keep the top spots.
Yeah, I'm gonna land on 2.5 stars. It was 2 stars when I finished the movie, but really talking to you and also thinking about it, and just the idea that in my mind now I'm just thinking of Dunston. I was like, yeah, that was a real orangutan, and he fucking outacted Rupert Everett. It's just 2.5. It's fine. And unlike you, I don't have nostalgia for this type of movie. I can recognize it, but for me, when I think of because of the disconnect, not just our age gap, but also the time warp between releases in Peru and releases in America when I was a kid. So I'm thinking, my kids' movies are more like 80s kids' movies, not 90s kids' movies. So I'm thinking of shit like, a movie like The Goonies. That's something more that, I can have nostalgia for. This is not. This is just what I knew that was happening. I was like, I have no interest in this anymore.
You were already 27 when this movie came out, so
I was already in the Rupert Everett phase of my life.
So I saved this note here to end it on in going back to the It Used to Be Better. And this is really just a reiteration of that Matt Damon clip from Hot Ones that went viral and has gone viral again and again and again since it came out. But as I mentioned, a budget of $16 million, didn't even make 10 back in the box office. Home video sales, Julio, over $40 million within like the first 6 months of it being released on home video. Receiving 75%, it greatly exceeded box office growth. As of April 97, that's when the studio said they had made over $40 million for it.
Do you think Jason Alexander still gets royalty checks from Dunston? Or does he have them like rerouted to some sort of charity?
I doubt it, because it's not. We didn't talk about this yet. I had to buy it on Prime. It's not like it's available for streaming anyway. So actually, no, that's true. If it's on a streaming service, that's what the whole fucking strike was about. But since I paid for it, he might get like a 2-cent royalty check in the mail next week.
He's like, what the fuck is this? Who watched Dunston Checks In? Well, he get 4 cents. Your 2 cents and mine. I got it on YouTube.
There you go.
Dunston can stay with us tonight, but tomorrow we've got to find another place for him.
All right, Julio. Sadly, Dunston is in the rear view. What's coming up ahead?
Coming up next, Alex, this is something that I was going to say I feel bad for you, but not so much. I think you own this movie. We're going back to Crystal Lake. We're going back to the Voorhees saga. This time for...
Hashtag not my Jason.
It's a Jason. And I think we need to be open-minded. If we're open-minded about Dunston, we have to be open-minded about what you can do with the Friday the 13th series. And as I was putting the stuff on our website about like what's coming up, I realized that we've done the remake for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We did the remake for Nightmare on Elm Street. We did the remake for Halloween.
Yep.
We've been like knocking them off. So it's time. We got to do the Friday the 13th remake from 2009. And we are going to have on the show a returning guest and somebody that is at least as big a Friday the 13th fan as you are. And that is Stu from Stu World Order. So he'll be here to help us say really nice things about the Friday the 13th remake. And then I don't know if he likes it or not. I guess we'll find out.
Look, people have listened to this. I detest that movie and people know that. So it's I'm not looking forward to rewatching that.
But I'm not wrong, right? You own it.
Yeah, because I have the box set that Scream Factory put out a few years ago. I've been using it as a coaster ever since.
Gotta unwrap it. Pop it in.
Like, yeah, my thoughts on it have always been very short form. So finally, at long last, I'll be able to express my issues and watch it. Turns out you end up liking it, but
it's possible. Never say never.
If I have another connoisseur on my hands, it'll at least lead to some interesting discussion.
I just can't wait for you to like pop in the disc and you're like, son of a bitch, it's full screen.
That's like all of those were like remasters for that box set they released, except that one. They're just like, fuck it, just give them a cam from the weekend it came out.
All right, so Friday the 13th, 2009 edition, that's coming up next. That's how we're closing February. Looking forward to it.
All right, Julio, let's get out of here.
Let's do.
Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. You can also check out his podcast Nación Combi about Peruvian current affairs and Marginal about economy. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Coriari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
How much money he makes a year, or who he knows. Just promise me you'll wear that dress and you won't forget that summer of 99.